Greetings everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, and as you can tell from the title, I'm continuing my off and on reviews of episodes of the different Star Trek shows. This one is going to be episode 11 of season 1 of Star Trek The Next Generation, The Big Goodbye. Now this is an episode that is a first, and it begins a trope that we see pop up throughout TNG, Deep Space Nine, I think a little bit into Voyager, as the years and different seasons of those respective shows go on. And that is the holodeck. Now this is a type of episode where it gives the writers an excuse to not do something super space related and dress up the actors in different outfits and have them play out a fantasy thing. And a lot of the times these episodes involve the holodeck malfunctioning. And of course that trope also begins in this one, because that is the major drama of this episode, is that a couple characters are in the holodeck, it malfunctions, and they have to figure out a way to get out of the holodeck before anything bad happens to any of them. Now, Big Goodbye is directed by Joseph Scatland, and the teleplay was written by Tracy Torme. And I can tell you, even though it's been a while since I watched Code of Honor, this is a big step up from that one, even though it's several episodes after that one. Now, the original idea for this episode was suggested by Gene Roddenberry himself, which, go figure, with how involved he was in the show at this point in time, a couple years before he passed away. And it was Torme who added the film noir elements. Makes me wonder what Roddenberry's original pitch was like. I haven't read any of the books about the beginning of the Next Generation. Sorry about that sound. Although from what I hear, some of it is conjecture, like, okay, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Who knows? It's one of those weird things. But with the film noir elements, it really works. And of course, Torme, being a fan of the genre, really was able to put those elements there. And he put them in there as a homage to films like The Maltese Falcon, which is a film that's still on my to-watch list, so keep an eye on that down the pipe. Maybe I'll do like a mini-thon of film noir. Now, when they were compiling the episode together and putting all the ideas, both Torme and Scatland suggested that the holodeck scenes be filmed in black and white, but that was shot down by Rick Berman and Robert H. Justman because they said the holodeck would not change the crew appearance, which I do get. I mean, this episode shows you have to go into the holodeck in an existing costume. However, if the holodeck is able to make things like chairs and stuff you can interact with, it can construct water, food, and all such of other stuff, then I think changing the lighting to give you the appearance of being in black and white while the holographic elements are in black and white is not out of the realm of possibility. Plus, it could be part of the suspension of disbelief that they go in there, it's black and white, and all that. Or if you want to have the characters comment on it, you could have Picard be like, look around like, oh, I guess this really is a noir story. Now, the plot of the film is that the Enterprise is going for a meeting with this alien race, which we hear but we never see, called the Harada. And in case anyone's wondering, that species name is spelled with a J, but it's pronounced in the Spanish fashion, the J for H sound. And the Harada are really real anal retentive about how they make contact with other alien species. Is that if you mispronounce even a single syllable of their greeting, they basically give you the finger and go away. And of course, because of this, Picard is really trying to get this greeting down pat, because he wants to make a good first impression with the Harada. He has Starfleet going out like, hey, Picard and all that. And of course, being the captain of the most famous ship in the entire Starfleet, a lot of pressure on him. Even the best captains could crack under this, so Picard is given the suggestion, like, you know what, we still got a couple days before we meet the Harada. You still got some time, maybe you should go and decompress in the holodeck. I mean, we got that Hill protocol, you want to go? Alright. So he goes in there, and he has fun. You know, he goes in there initially to just see how the program runs. He likes it. Then he goes in later with Data, who really gets into it at times, and you really get to see some of the fish out of water humor there with Data because of how analytical and direct he is. A random crew member who is also an expert on the time period and the story. And of course, Dr. Crusher. Now, as they're going in, the Harada show up and they start scanning the ship, which of course is what makes the holodeck go haywire. And not just any haywire. Nobody can go in, Nobody can come out. And a lot of the holodeck safety features are turned off. Because that's one thing that the holodeck does have. It has safety features. Which some people might go, that sounds like a pretty serious design flaw. Why would you have something like that? Why would you even have the ability to turn safety features off? Well, since you can basically do just about anything in the holodeck, including combat and some of the most spicy ideas, I'll leave that to your imagination. Not having the ability to turn a safety feature off might be counterintuitive, especially if you're a Klingon, as we see in later episodes. They like that. Maybe you actually want to feel the cut, and so you actually know, like, okay, next time, every cut is a lesson. But in this situation, that's bad, because they're acting like, these are holograms. What's the worst that could happen right here if we can't get out? And the random crew member gets shot. So now they have to deal with the mob guys that are part of the Hill story, and they have to figure out a way to interact with this world until the crew on the outside are able to get the holodeck open. And of course, while this is going on, Riker has to try and BS the Harada, who are very offended that they're dealing with the first officer, not the captain. Of course, that kind of ties into Riker's whole thing about, he likes being in command, he likes doing all that, but he's not quite ready to be the captain, which would culminate later on, all the way forward in time in Star Trek Nemesis, where he officially decides to become a captain of the Titan, which of course we never see him on the Titan until Lower Decks recently. Well, it's long-term storytelling, but that's also a backloaded storytelling going with long-term storytelling. I do like how they managed to BS the holodeck into not killing any of them. They basically go the meta approach. I'm not going to fully spoil it, but if you can kind of guess with the holodeck and the fact they use the term meta, you can kind of figure it out for yourself. Although, with part of it, it does come with a possible contradiction from later holodeck lore, and that is that anything that's created on the holodeck cannot leave it. And we see some of the holograms leave before dissipating, whereas according to later episodes they would dissipate while trying to walk through it. But then again, we also see Picard get hit with a ice ball coming from the holodeck in another one. And of course, in Elementary Dear Data, Data even leaves the holodeck with a piece of paper. So I guess it depends on how sensitive you put the settings. The hologram stuff, like the people, probably could walk out and then dissipate, or they could just dissipate when they go to the door. But stuff that is made on the holodeck, that can be made with the replicators, like paper, water, stuff like that, you can leave the holodeck with and it will stay with you. That's probably also the reason why it's better to go into the holodeck already wearing the outfit for whatever holodeck adventure you're going to have. And we see a lot of that in Deep Space Nine with O'Brien and Bashir, all their little adventures. The Alamo! And overall, this is a pretty good episode. It has some good stuff for Picard to do. Patrick Stewart does a pretty good job playing it out. It does have some of the sexual tension between Picard and Dr. Crusher there, which we're going to see a lot of throughout the show. And of course, it being in the period piece type setting, you really get the old-fashioned one, like, what's a dame like you doing in a place like this? Of course, Picard doesn't say that, but it's the type of underlying vibe. And of course, all the holodeck scenes were filmed on the Paramount Pictures in New York Street backlot, so, they don't have to build anything. It really does add a little bit to the authenticity of the holodeck sets there. Data, like I said at the top, fish out of water humor there, pretty good. People were wondering where he's from, given when the Hill stories are set. The expert on the holodeck stuff, right there. All the side characters trying to get the holodeck to come open pretty good. You get Wesley to do some stuff. Which, of course, if you're not a fan of Wesley's character in Season 1, you'd be like, all right, here he goes. It's going to be Wesley that does it. But I thought it came off pretty well. And, of course, like I already mentioned with Riker, him trying to do his whole command storyline, pretty good. And, him trying to BS the Harada. Which, some might be disappointed that you never see the Harada, you only hear them, and they have very insect-type voices with the background. We will only speak with the captain. Kind of like things. Like, maybe not as over-the-top as, say, Waspinator from Beast Wars, but a little bit around there. Now, part of the reason for the Harada not appearing were budget restrictions. And the script describes them as wasp-like, which I guess is why they have voices like that. But with how the episode's paced, unless we saw them, after Picard did it and then they came up on screen and we saw them in their ship, I can't really think of a way that they could come out without it being intrusive and killing the pace of the end of the episode. Especially with how Picard just is like, all right, here we go. But for how it goes, it's fine, and I can understand disappointment. Now, one interesting thing, this is the only Star Trek episode to win a Peabody Award according to IMDb, so gotta give it that. Trope starting episode 1, something good. In case anyone's wondering when the episode is set in the holodeck parts, it's June 25th, 1941. So World War II era, but right before America entered it. Some of the cast we got here, of course, we got a Dick Miller sighting. He plays the paper vendor. It's always good to see Dick Miller in this type of stuff, especially in this era. Lawrence Tierney as Cyrus Redbach. He played Joe in Reservoir Dogs, in case anyone's wondering. He was the guy that like, who didn't tip? So he goes through, so got a type, and he can be typecast, but he's good in either of them. Harvey Jason as Felix Leach, who played Ajay in The Lost World Jurassic Park. It was one of those things I'm looking at, I'm like, I know him from somewhere, but where? I guess it was because he wasn't wearing glasses in this one. He does a pretty good job as Felix. He's essentially the guy sent by the big boss man to intimidate everybody. He does a good job there. And overall, this is an episode of the first season that I would recommend. I know the first season and parts of the second season, some fans are like, eh, but there are good episodes in here. I mean, the first one was good. This one I'd say is good. Code of Honor, I know people skip. And there's a couple other episodes I've seen that will get reviews down the pipe. But until then, this is definitely one that I would recommend you watch to tide you over. Especially if you have not watched any of the Star Trek shows or have watched random stuff like I am going through it with. Definitely gets the Mars stamp of approval with it. And like I said, good character interactions, good character story for a handful of them. Wesley might drag on you, but he's alright. It is... I guess you could say it's a bottle episode because they're using existing sets to save some money in certain regards, but it is a nice bottle episode. Until next time, guys.